Hello chess friends and welcome to Zero Chess channel and welcome to another great gameplay by the new Stockfish version, by the new Stockfish 14. In my opinion, it's really great how Stockfish 14 is playing now. It plays really this beautiful and sharp and tactical openings. Mikhail Tal, Paul Murphy openings. I think we missed these openings a little bit when it comes to top grandmaster level, and also some other engines are choosing simply different ideas. This game that I will show you, it's in a Scotch Gambit, and I think we'll miss also a little bit the Scotch Gambit, but I think that the Scotch Gambit is sort of an opening that your opponent has to play. I think your opponent has to go into the Scotch Gambit. That's actually the beauty of this Gambit line, and it's actually one of the good Gambits, because there are, in my opinion, bad Gambits and good Gambits. In this Scotch Gambit, I think you can use in order to surprise your opponent from an early stage of the game. So the problem, I think, for Black is, as I said, that Black has to go into the Scotch Gambit preparation. So let's check out now the great game. It was Stockfish 14 against another top engine, Igel. I hope you like also Igel's avatar, because Igel in German is the hedgehog. So here it's also brutal cyborg hedgehog here by that is playing now the Stockfish 14 version. So be prepared. This is again simply beautiful tactical game. Here Stockfish opened with the move e4. We have e5 by Igel, knight to f3, knight to c6, and now we have d4 so far the Scotch game. And after e takes a d4, now after bishop to c4, you see we're not taking out the pawn on d4, so that's why it's sort of a gambit line. Of course, in the continuation of the game, we could take out the pawn here on d4, but the main idea of the Scotch Gambit is then afterwards to play the move c3, and then maybe to play c takes d4 if your opponent doesn't react. But most of the times your opponent will react with d takes c3, and then of course it's a gambit because we give up a pawn in an early stage of the game, but just in order to get connectivity. It's similar to the Danish Gambit. We have covered also the Danish Gambit, also with some great Stockfish 13 games. So it's really a brilliant opening in my opinion. It's really sharp opening, and as I said, if you want to surprise your opponent, if you're an e4 player, I think this is a perfect game for you. So you see bishop to b4 here played by Igel. We have now c3, we have d takes c3, and now Stockfish castles. Like in the Danish Gambit, you see we're giving up two pawns. In the continuation we have c takes b2, and now after bishop to b2, almost all of the minor pieces of whites are out. You see the bishop's activity is really powerful. Both of these bishops are aiming towards Black's king. Now even knight to g5 is a threat, and the most important thing I think is that we have still this mobile pawn. This mobile pawn gives us strength to maybe push the position a little bit further. If the knight comes on f6, then of course the knight can be kicked away by potential e5 move. So see, we have now set up again. It's a sharp opening. Whenever we face a sharp opening, if you make a slightly tiny inaccuracy, if you play maybe one passive move here from white perspective, then the game is over. So if you're maybe a tactician, this will be a perfect game, as I said. So here knight to f6, here knight to g5, attacking immediately at the f7 square, here castling, and now comes this move e5. So in the continuation, Igel tried the counterattack, the normal counterattack in the center, because we want to lock, of course, the light square bishop. Taking out here is not a good choice. Of course, it leads now into a simplified game. So that's why here in the continuation, Stockfish 14 simply took e takes f6, and now after d takes c4, now comes the tricky part. Here comes the move queen to h5. It's already very dangerous attack. Of course, the serious threat is now a direct checkmate here on h7. So that's why h6 is pretty much forced. Here in the continuation, Stockfish plays now the move a3. You see, a3 is really necessary to kick away the bishop, because the bishop doesn't have so many great squares. If the bishop comes here on c5, then of course it's on the same rank where the queen is. So there are maybe some tactics, some discovered tactics, then maybe to take out the bishop on c5. So if the bishop comes to to a5 here, then of course it's a little bit too passive. It will be there forever. If the bishop comes on d6, again it can be kicked away with some knight to e4 activity. So a rook to d1 could be also an idea, maybe to create a very powerful pin. If the bishop comes on d6, then of course you're getting pinned, then the queen is a little bit stuck. So it's really wild tactical line. So here, as we said, a3 was played, but here you could make a mistake. For instance, if you try f takes g7, you see Black will simply take out the queen, and now you can maybe try this one. G takes f8 comes of course with the check, king to f8, and now after queen to g5, h takes g5. It's actually that's Black is better here, although Black is down the exchange. But when we watch now the position after potential maybe knight to c3, bishop to f5, normal developing moves, I think Black is much better because of this very powerful pawn majority on the queen side, this 4 versus 1 situation. So I think in the continuation of the game, Black will find of course great opportunities is to push the pawns, maybe a6, b5, then maybe even take out the knight, then even b4, a4. So this pawn storm will come, and I think white is simply tactically lost on the queen side. So that's why a3, first kicking away the bishop. So you see f takes g7, not a good move. So here after move a3, we have a bishop to d6, getting the bishop, of course, where it's at least attacking something. But as we said, you could face here always this pinning idea with the move rook to d1, because this cavalry strike bishop to h2 and maybe the attacking the rook are not possible because the queen is still connected to the rook. So that's why this pin would be also very, very powerful. So here comes knight to e4. Now there is, of course, the serious threat, rook to d1. In the continuation, we have rook to e8 here by Igel, and now a great move by Stockfish, f takes g7. Because if you try now rook to e4 immediately, it's not so good, because of course, first of all, you get this one, queen to h6 comes with the direct threat to deliver checkmate on h8. So that's why you have to create some breathing spaces. You have to play f5, but now comes the knight out. You see, because of the move bishop to d6, you have lost a little bit the connection here by the queen and some pieces on the d file. So that's why so far this knight is protected. And now if you try rook to h4 in order to attack the queen, then you get this one. This is the serious threat. And now after potential maybe king to f7, we can promote here a new queen. If you take now, then of course the rook is hanging, because now you have to take it. Now you see the queen has lost the connection here to the rook. So really brilliant tactics here all over the board. So as I said, the really sharp opening. I think you can use this opening after f takes g7 in the continuation of the game. Here rook takes e4 wasn't played by Igel. Igel tried rook to e6 to somehow, of course, protect first this weak pawn on h6. So in the continuation now f4 again, you could make maybe a slight inaccuracy with moves as knight to d2, because it's of course natural to develop all of these pieces. But you see now this move is simply too passive, because in the continuation of the game here bishop to e5 simplifies the game simply for black. Black can trade off more pieces here. Bishop to e5, knight to e5 will happen, and I think black has solved, at least for a while now, all of this tactics. Still, of course, white has some problems. As we said here, the 4 versus 1 situation, whenever the game gets more and more simplified, maybe without the queens on the board, if black manages, for instance, to trade off the queens, then again it's game over for white, because black has this pawn majority on the queen side. So after f takes g7, you see it's not so good here after knight to e6 to play rook to e6, pardon me, to play the move knight to d2. So that's why here f4 comes of course also with the direct threat to play the move f5, and then finally to take out this weak pawn on h6. So that's why f5 here by Igel. We have queen to f5. We have now queen to e7, and this is now actually one of the most critical moments of this game, because there is always this threat, as we said, to play something like queen to h6 and then queen to h8. But even if queen to h8 happens, at least after king to f7, the queen is covering the 8th rank. When the queen is covering the 8th rank, then it's really hard for white to promote here to g8. So that's why when the queen has left now the defense of the 8th rank, now there are several tactical possibilities. So look at what Stockfish does. Now maybe you can also pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. Maybe pause the video, try to play like Stockfish 14. I know it's of course impossible, but maybe it's now time for you really to find the best next move. It's a brilliant move here that Stockfish 14 of course found. So okay, take your time. Maybe it's not so easy, but it is really beautiful move. So okay, after move queen to e7, Stockfish played here a brilliant move, knight to g5. Knight to g5 comes with the direct threat to deliver checkmate on h7. And what should you do? You can only take out here the knight with h takes g5, but now queen to h3 is happening, and you see now because the queen has left, as we said, the defense of the 8th rank, now black is simply tactically lost. In the continuation here, Igel had to sacrifice the queen for the pawn, and now after bishop to g7, it's basically game over. Really, this is really brutal chess. You see, it's a move 19 and black is really lost. So really wild stuff. Stockfish played here an awesome Scotch Gambit after move bishop to g7, of course king to g7, queen to c3 delivering a check here, king to g8, and now simply taking out also this pawn. We have f takes g5, bishop to d7, knight to d2, of course also trying to take out this pawn, but I think the most important thing is to keep now the pieces glued together, to keep them compact, and simply try to push the pawns here further on the king side. So rook to e7, we have now rook to f6. You see how Stockfish is always improving tactically. Stockfish gets always the pieces on the most active squares on the board. Rook to f6 here, also brilliant move. So rook to e6, we have rook to f1, we have a bishop to e5, queen to f3. We have now a very powerful rook queen rook battery on the f file. After move rook to f6, we have a g takes f6, rook to f8, and now queen to d5 with a check, rook to f7, and now knight to e4. Very nice move. Now also the threat is to play something like a knight to g5. Of course you cannot take here because everything is perfectly fine here so for white. So after move bishop to d6, now queen to g5, we have a king to h8, knight to d6, and after c takes d6, after the move rook to f4, here in this position Igel resigned. So what should you do? If you try bishop to f5 to maybe somehow cover here, because rook to h4 will happen, then you have to of course cover with the move bishop to h7. Then you get this one, queen to g6. Of course this is now a serious threat. Even if you try something like c3, you don't have really better moves. Then of course you get first rook to h7. After rook to h7, you get simply a checkmate here on e8. So brilliant game here by Stockfish. You see the Scotch Gambit is still sort of an unexplored opening. I think this is playable for us. Maybe you can try it out, maybe you can surprise your opponent, because it's really sharp opening, and the Igel is also an engine that has a rating over 3000. So if you could just imagine that you could maybe pull off some tactics against the Grandmaster or something, because as I said in the beginning, there is, I think, no good way for your opponent to escape from the Scotch Gambit, because your opponent has to play simply the Scotch Gambit from black's perspective and has to go into your tactical line. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think we'll follow now more this Stockfish 14 games, because we have really some brilliant games. King's Gambit, Evans Gambit, I think we'll cover now this beautiful and tactical openings in the continuation of the series. So as I said, if you want to maybe the PGNs of all of the games that Stockfish 14 has played, please write me a message on my email on yozarov@gmail.com. so I'll text you of course then the PGN. Maybe you can then afterwards analyze some games for yourself. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series with some more brilliant attacks by Stockfish, AlphaZero, Leela Chess Zero, and many more. And if you want to see maybe some human games, check out my best chess games of all time series with some great games also from the past. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.